Hello, my name is Danielle, and I am the Education Specialist here at the Turning Point Rape Crisis Center. So, today I'll explain. So, stereotypes are our ideas about a broad idea about a group of people. And so, in having broad ideas about groups of people, then we can have very negative broad ideas about groups of people, okay? So we have a lot of negative stereotypes. Now, stereotypes relate to sexual violence because sexual violence is a gendered crime. It is predominantly a crime that's perpetrated by men, and the victims are predominantly women. Now, that does not mean that there aren't women perpetrators and male victims. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that it is predominantly men and predominantly women victims. And so when we acknowledge that, then we can talk about stereotypes and how they relate to sexual violence. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so it takes you, Nati, a bystander's guide on being empowered and educated, because once we're educated about the problem, we can be the change to fix it and support survivors along the way. This is the Turning Point. So if you're on our Facebook page and you don't know who we are the Turning Point Rape Crisis Center of Collin County, and we are so happy that you found us. So this is our 24-hour, we have a 24-hour crisis hotline that is 1-800-886-7273. You can call that number at any time, rain, shine, 3 a.m., 3 p.m., holiday, not a holiday. There will be an advocate on the line that can answer any questions you have revolving around sexual violence. Next, we offer counseling. So we support survivors of sexual violence and their friends and family members. We offer free counseling for survivors and their friends and family members because everybody needs help getting through this traumatic time and this traumatic crime. So next, we provide advocacy. So we send advocates into the hospital to support survivors during their SANE exam, which is their sexual assault nurse examination. We let them know their rights. We get them plugged in with counseling and just overall support them during that exam. Next is this, education. We go into the community and schools and platforms and spread awareness about sexual violence, its key components and attributes to what contributes to sexual violence. We want to be more on the primary side of prevention. We want to prevent sexual violence from happening, and so we can do that through education. Our mission is to highlight the impact of sexual violence on individuals and our community through education programs that foster hope, encourage change, and prevent sexual violence. Join us in the fight against sexual violence. The Turning Point is committed to reducing the prevalence of sexual violence in our community. We firmly believe that for this change to occur, each person has a responsibility and must do their part to prevent sexual violence. So, public health model. This is important for stereotypes or any problem that is a widespread problem. So sexual violence, violence in general, so many different things. But for today, we're going to be talking about sexual violence and how stereotypes contribute to that. So defining the problem, stereotypes, identify the risk and protective factors, develop and test prevention strategies, and then ensure widespread adoption. So let's get into it. So risk factors. So on the individual level, hypermasculinity is a risk factor, including objectification of women and male entitlement. Next, we have hostility towards women, unhealthy attitudes about sex and sexuality, so unhealthy attitudes about consent, and then also gender inequality. These are individual risk factors. Next, we have relationships. So relationship risk factors are in association with sexually aggressive peers and delinquent peers. Next, community. So community risk factors are general tolerance of sexual violence within the community. So when we see something happen in the news or something like that revolving around sexual violence and we turn a blind eye, we're saying that that behavior is okay. We have to be able to look at the ugly things of our society. We have to be able to acknowledge what's going on, because in Texas, I've said this many times before, 2 in 5 women will be the victim of sexual violence and 1 in 5 men. So 20% of males in Texas and 40% of women in Texas will be the survivor of sexual violence. So we have to be able to acknowledge this. We have to be able to face this problem head on so that we can stop this problem. Next, so on societal risk factors. Societal risk factors are societal norms that support sexual violence. So when we say, oh, well, she doesn't want to have sex, so give her a bunch of drinks or something like that, we're saying that taking away somebody's consent is okay, which is never okay. If you have to supply someone with copious amounts of alcohol to get them to sleep with you, that is not consent. That is rape. Weak laws and policies related to gender equity. We have to be able to have policies and laws that support and protect people from sexual violence and gendered crime and all sorts of crime. We have to make sure that our laws are strong and our policies are strong. So let's get into protective factors. So protective factors: gender equality, connectedness, conflict resolution, and empathy. These are all important. These 4 things are so important to protecting us from these problems. So gender equality, we want to be able to say male, female, equal. While male and female are different on a scientific level, I acknowledge your differences and I appreciate your differences. We don't want to say, oh, there's absolutely nothing different between a male and a female, because we know on a biological level that that's not true. But we want to be able to say that although we are different on a biological level, that does not impair or affect the way that we can work or the way that we can do different things, because we have so many different things now that we didn't have before. When we go into stereotypes, these ideas that we have are rooted in our history, and I'll get to that in a second. So connectedness, being able to, like I said before, acknowledge differences and love those differences. Conflict resolution. Conflict resolution is something that we will all need, whether you are in a marriage, with your family members, with your children, with your friends, in a relationship. Any relationship is going to need conflict resolution. You need to know how to resolve conflict in a healthy way. And then next is empathy. Empathy is really just sitting with someone and walking in their shoes and saying that I feel you, I support you, I validate you. Even if you will never be able to understand what they're going through, you can acknowledge and validate their feelings and support them. So, what does it mean to be a woman? And what does it mean to be a man? When you look at these pictures, do you think that this accurately defines what it means to be a woman and what it means to be a man? What about the women who like superheroes and like sports? What about the men who like to cook? These boxes do not encompass who we are as women or who we are as men. So let's break this down on this pink versus blue, superhero versus princesses, and dresses versus pants. And where does this come from? Well, it comes from our history. For a long time, women couldn't work. Why couldn't they work? Because laws prohibited them from working. So what was their option? Get married and have babies. And then when you have babies, you took care of your babies and you took care of, it's okay. You took care of the babies and you took care of the household. You cooked, you cleaned, you did your part in that way since you weren't allowed to work. Now, once we had our wars where all the men were gone, the women still had to put food on the table. So that's when women started to work. And then when the men came home, it was like, well, I enjoy working and I enjoy having my own money. So this has got to change. And so we started to change then, but those mindsets still stayed the same of women cook, clean, take care of babies, men, providers. That changed then, but we still have those mindsets now. And so We have to cut that mindset out, because while you can still have a stay-at-home mom, and it's nothing wrong with being a stay-at-home mom. A woman can be a scientist, she can be a doctor, she can have all of these opportunities now. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with being a stay-at-home mom, but there's nothing wrong with not wanting to be a stay-at-home mom too. And then now we can also have stay-at-home dads and stay-at-home have nannies that are male, and also be able to have males who are chefs and things like that. I mean, Gordon Ramsay, he is a world-renowned chef. So these boxes do not encompass what it means to be a male and what it means to be a female. Herc, come here. I apologize. My dog is being crazy in the back. So what do we see? What do we see on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook? What kind of memes and things do we see that say sexual violence is okay? Well, we see things like this. I don't have sex on the first date, and then Bill Cosby drugging her. This is a joke to people. This is something that people find funny. And whenever you see something on Twitter and you just, you retweet it or you laugh at it, you are laughing at somebody else's pain. You are laughing at somebody else's story, and that's not okay. That's never okay. Okay, we have Brock Turner over here who, you have Sleeping Beauty, and they're saying that that's funny, and it's not funny. Okay, these are people's real stories. These are people's real life, and you don't want to laugh at somebody who went through a trauma and a crime. We don't want to do that. So we can't support this kind of behavior. Next, what do we see in magazines? We see things like this. You can't even see the woman's face here. You just see her body. So what is this saying? This is saying that a woman is just her body. What about this one? We have burgers being compared to boobs, and you have so many things that these little microaggressions on how we view women. And these things get into our mind, and it affects how we see ourselves, and it affects how others see us. What about these ones? What about these ones? We don't want to be viewed like this. We don't want people to think, she's a car, put a car over her face, she's just an object. We are not objects. Women are not objects. Men are not objects. Okay? So now let's kind of talk a little bit. So if those ads were disturbing to you, they should be. If those ads made you numb, then you need to take a look at yourself and take a look at the media that you are taking in. I want you, and I implore you, to look at the commercials and look at the things that you see on Instagram and Twitter and ask yourself, what's the message that you're receiving from that? Because we don't want to become numb to these things. We don't want to believe that these things are acceptable and normal. We want to be a change because we want sexual violence to go down. We want people to see women as human beings and not objects. We want women to stop being objectified, and we want there to be healthy ideas about women and men and sexuality. I'm gonna link a key video called A Call to Men that goes into how stereotypes and how this toxic masculinity can affect women and can affect men on a deep level, and its lasting effects. It's so important to educate yourself about these topics, because if you're raising boys, if you are a man, you want to be educated about this because you want to create world changers. We want world changers. We want this problem to end. And so if you are willing to fight the good fight with us, then I encourage you to share this message, to like our Facebook page, to share our Facebook page, and get plugged in any way you can. Use your platform for good and be empowered and educated. I thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.